but I'm excited today that we have the writer-director Riley Stearns here joining us on the Film Threat livecast. Riley, pleasure to meet you, sir.
Hey, nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're also here with people in the chat. We'll be taking their chat questions about the movie. The movie played Sundance. That's how Alan got to see it and loved it. What led to this story? And I'm really loving indie sci-fi. Like indie sci-fi to me is just going through a total renaissance now. There's so much good stuff, but how did you come up with this story and what led to writing and then being able to get the amazing Karen Gillan to star in your film?
I mean, initially the idea, I had a short that I never ended up making between my first feature, Faults, and my second feature, The Art of Self-Defense, where a character was going to interact with themselves. And I really just wanted to do that sort of thing still. So I ended up coming up with this idea of this alternate reality where cloning exists, but you can only do it if you know you're going to die. And then I realized that that wasn't enough. Like I needed something else. And I started asking questions about this concept and of the concept. And I got to the question of, well, what happens if you go into remission? And for some reason, the immediate answer that I had for that was, well, you'll duel your double to the death. And that's where the movie like really took off for me. Karen, luckily, was a fan of The Art of Self-Defense. And so when we met, she was on the exact same page as me. I'm a huge fan of hers. I think she's so incredibly talented. And the fact that she is in the movie and is as good as she is just like, I'm incredibly lucky.
Yeah, so she's fantastic. I mean, just like, did you have conversations about Marvel movies with her, like, and her affiliation with the franchise? Like,
I guess a little bit. I think we've talked more about her feature debut, her directorial debut, a little bit more, and I peripherally. I mean, I'm not a huge comic book person, so like, I'm not on that sort of wavelength, I guess. But we did probably talk about that a bit. I know that she was aware of the fact that she would be in another Guardians and all of that down the line. So I'm sure that came up, but I like that she's doing something a little different than what she normally gets to do. And her trust in me was really, really, I guess, humbling, to say the least, because she's so much more talented than I am. So the fact that she trusted me to go down this road and deliver this performance that's maybe a little different and left of center is pretty cool.
Well, it definitely gave you like a huge advantage. The fact that like, I mean, look, some actors, they're just focused on the acting. And then there are other actors that understand the craft, that understand, storytelling, that understand storytelling via the cinematic sentence, right? And I feel like you really got like so lucky to be able to work with her, that she is a craftsperson behind the scenes as well. I think it really just added to the experience.
Definitely. And I should also say that I love working with good people too. And one of the actors in the film, Beulah Koale, he and I had a phone conversation because he was in New Zealand at the time, and when I cast him, and the first thing he said to me was, "Are you a good person?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm a good person. Are you a good person?" And and he goes, "Yeah, I'm a good person." And it's the very literal experience that I have with every meeting with actors, where I just want to work with people who are there, who are excited about the project, and get that like making movies is fun. We're very lucky that we get to do this. So like, let's treat each other well and have a good experience making something. Because yeah, not a lot, like everyone wants to be in our position. So like, let's take advantage of it.
Well, I think, first of all, that is a great question. Are you a good person? I feel like,
yeah, I really love that question. I'm going to ask that of everybody from now on.
But did someone ever answer no? That's my question.
I mean, I'm sure there are actors who would answer a little bit more truthfully and maybe lean towards that end. But yeah, most people are probably going to say yes.
Well, when you see some of the madness happening behind the scenes with certain films, and I don't want to cite examples, but I always sort of tune out when I see like behind the scenes drama. I don't want to know, and I don't care. I just, I'm going to assume the good in people first, and then, but I have just having been around as long as I have, not to date myself, but I've seen there are terrible people in this business. So that's a very legit question to ask. I want to ask about Sundance. This is how Alan got to see your film. was it a little bit of a disappointment that Sundance went just like a fully virtual experience? You didn't get to have that like Eccles Theater premiere in Park City, Utah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't say that it was a disappointing sort of outcome, but it wasn't just disappointing for us as the filmmakers. It was disappointing to the programmers as well and the festival goers. Like nobody wanted this to happen, but when you have Park City basically saying our hospital is completely full right now, and if anything happens, we can't take care of people. Sundance made the right call at the end of the day, but it was sad. Like I've had a short play at Sundance in 2013, and that was an incredible experience. And I was just excited to be back and like have a feature there for the first time, let alone in competition. I think the thing that I missed the most was being able to hang out with other filmmakers and have that like sort of camp experience that you get at festivals. And like you said, we would have premiered at the Eccles, which is just, I mean, it would have been a dream, but I'm very, very happy that more people got to see it because of the experience that we ended up having being virtual. And we'll always be able to say we were a Sundance film, even though it didn't play in person.
Yeah, that energy in the room at the Eccles, and that like, you know, they say there's something in the air in Park City. It's like, it's palpable. I remember being at the premiere of Napoleon Dynamite, and just like, it's among others that I've seen there. And it's just, I don't know. And what I love also about seeing films at Sundance is you're seeing the movie untainted by marketing.
Yeah.
Meaning you've only read a description in the program guide, and all the descriptions and program guides are incredibly vague. Yeah. They don't tell you anything. And so you're seeing it sight unseen without having seen a trailer, even a poster, nothing. It's like, here's the title, here's who's in it. Trust us. And
yeah,
I
definitely. I like would have loved that experience, but I'm glad that again, that people throughout the world, even a lot of people know how to use VPNs. So Sundance was able to play in countries other than the United States too, which is kind of cool and a little punk rock when you think about it.
No, I love it. And congratulations again, just to get there. And I do love that Sundance has recently really embraced like indie sci-fi and indie horror, although the indie horror really ends up playing usually the Egyptian at midnight, which is
cool. This year, I feel like the program, and I was talking to one of the programmers recently, had a drink with him and when he was in town. And I think the cool thing about the program this year is that the in competition section had several horror films and a couple of like sci-fi leaning things too. They're not afraid to mix it up. And I think that people's definition of a traditional Sundance film is sort of changing as the programmers change and as the directors change and the festival continues to evolve. Pretty exciting.
Yeah. Before we get to, you're getting a lot of love in the chat. I just want to say,
cool.
A lot of people in the chat. I'm going to throw up their comments in a second, but Alan had a question about your film. So I want to, Alan, go right ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the standout scenes in the movie is when Trent and Sarah are doing the fight training where they're talking through every move. And I was just curious. So is that a real thing? Is that how these guys actually do it? Or were you making up? It's a brilliant scene. And I think, you know, if anything, that's the scene to see in the movie.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, well, there's no real personal combat trainer in real life. So like, I guess I had the ability to make up whatever I wanted, but I've been doing jujitsu now for 9 years. I've been training and competing, and I now coach. And one of the things you do in jujitsu is you'll spar and go 100%, obviously, but you also do this thing called flow rolling, where you're kind of going maybe 20% and you let people get into a position and then they can get out of it, and then vice versa. And it's more of a conversation, like you're helping each other practice proper technique and thinking ahead. And so it's kind of like the combat training version of flow rolling. Like they're being like kids and getting to talk through and say, no, I shot you, but no, I had my force field on and all that. But then also, I guess I can relate it directly to how you train. And it was a very fun scene to write, but then the thought of actually shooting it, I was just like, how's this going to turn out? And Karen and Aaron just like had the funnest time shooting that thing. And it just, I think everyone on set that day knew we were making something pretty special.
I would imagine that took a long time. I would imagine, I mean, I'd be laughing if I was watching it.
We were cracking up after every take. It was, I think that was half of a day. It was probably like one of two scenes that we would have shot that day.
Let's go to our questions in the chat and comments. People are Riley. They're loving you. Look at this. Good morning, Riley.
Good morning.
B-roll. Holy Hand Grenade says, I need to watch this one. Spider Geronimo says, I guess you can't be arrested for killing yourself. So,
yeah, I mean, when it's a law that you have to, then why are you going to get arrested for, like, you're just going along with the law? It's in accordance with the law.
Exactly. And our Kitty 83 says, so it's like dual. Sounds awesome. And
I've got a little play on words thing going there, don't I?
It's good. Patrick Lemire says identity theft is not a joke. And here's a question from Spider Geronimo. How many times has Gillan acted opposite herself? Doctor Who, Avengers, Duel? Like, yeah.
It's literally 3 times. You got all 3 of them. Yep.
Wow.
And that's Steven Spielberg's Duel. Remember, I'm DUAL.
Yeah. Well, you're in good company though. But like, Duel, like, did it present many problems? I mean, I imagine for an actor, like, what is the process? Do you have audio or other videos? So you shoot the one side, then you shoot the clone, like, and then Karen acts against herself. How does it actually work, technically speaking?
I mean, there's various ways of shooting. There's like camera tricks that you can do where you're shooting over the shoulder and things that are more just like the lo-fi version. But we also on specific days would have a motion control rig. So it's exactly like you said. If you imagine like the cheap version that you can shoot in your apartment, you have your iPhone, you shoot one side of it, you do a split screen, and then you shoot the other side, and then you join those 2 things together. We were just using very fancy camera rigs to achieve the same thing through motion. So we would have a camera pan with her or move with her. We shoot one side of it, and then she's acting opposite her body double and scene partner, a woman in Finland where we shot named Katarina, an actress who was able to give Karen a performance. And then she goes to hair and makeup, changes out of that wardrobe into the other. And then we go and we shoot her as the other character now. And then similarly to just doing a split screen, we're just doing a very fancy version of a split screen to join those 2 things together. And I never wanted it to draw attention to itself. So I think that we tried to keep it more on the subtle side and a little bit more subdued and natural. But yeah, a lot of work goes into something like that.
Yeah, I would imagine. You know, one of my a film that comes to mind, Dead Ringers, David Cronenberg, such a great use of that technique, and it's always when you don't notice it, I think, is when it's the best.
And I think that was one of the first films to ever use motion control cameras, even as early as it was. It used motion control cameras, which they basically just remember exactly the same move that you did, and then it recreates it to the pixel. Obviously, it's gotten a little bit more advanced since that time, but yeah, I would say that Dead Ringers was at least one of, if not the first ones to utilize that technology for this very reason.
And Derek Douglas says, hopefully guys like Riley are the directors of the future.
That's cool. Thanks.
Which is great. What? So now the movie is in theaters now. How does it feel having gone through this experience? Because it's so tough to be in the position that you're in, right? You know, doing the short, getting this at Sundance, getting a theatrical release. It's playing at my local AMC in Burbank.
Nice. Yeah, the 16. I love that one.
Oh, you got to go. Well, first of all, that's become, I've run into so many like filmmakers and people there.
That's
and
a good one.
Yeah, the Sonic 2, like, was it last week? The director was there and a bunch of the cast like just showed up. So are you going to be checking out your film in a theater possibly?
Well, tonight we're doing the AMC Q&A. Joe Lynch, the director, is going to be doing is going to be moderating a Q&A with me at the AMC 5 on Sunset in LA. And then tomorrow night we'll be at the Draft House I think that one's sold out. My friend Demi is going to do the moderation on that one. So I will be out and about, but specifically those 2 theaters. But yeah, I love Burbank. To see a movie in Burbank, I'm on the AMC A-list stubs thing. So like, yeah. And so my friends and I will meet up at, there's a bar around the corner that we meet up.
Yard House or Barney's Beanery. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we will obviously like do our cheer for the Nicole Kidman ad. And then I love that Burbank has parking too. It's like very easy to park. And I used to work at that Urban Outfitters when I first moved to LA when I was 19. So it's also just a weird stomping ground sort of situation as well. So,
well, first of all, I admire you for working retail. I am also I also come from retail. I think coming from retail makes you humble.
I worked in food before that when I was in Austin, and then I worked at Urban Outfitters for a couple of years before I finally got into a writer's room as an assistant and PA, and then kind of worked my way up that way. But yeah, I've been through the ringer.
Some other questions here. Infinite Main, any dance fighting in the movie?
There's fighting and there's dance, but not those things at the exact same time.
And this is a question, this question I think is like, in terms of like the types of questions you get, this is always a question that people ask. And I think it's important. It's Fletcher Williams says, how did you get your budget? How did you put together the financing?
Yeah, so like I said, this is my third feature, so I'm in a position where it's a little bit easier to maybe get people behind, especially people who appreciate what I'm trying to do. And XYZ, who made the movie, they also worked on Mandy and like they make great science fiction horror sort of genre things. They have a film fund right now that was out of a company from Finland. So this film fund, we were going to be the first movie that was made under that sort of umbrella. And we ended up being that, but it's just, it took a roundabout path once COVID hit. We had to kind of reassess where we were going to shoot, ended up shooting in Finland for the safety of the cast and crew. But I've been very fortunate so far on each of my films. The financing has come from one entity, and they have been pretty hands-off, and the producers have trusted the vision. So yeah, I'm not saying that that's like necessarily the norm, but for me, it's been pretty cool, and I haven't had to worry too much about the finding of the funds. It's more about working with the right producers.
Well, I mean, there's so many different pathways to financing now. You've got crowdfunding.
Sure.
Usually most first-time filmmakers, it's an angel investor, usually a cousin who's a dentist.
We all have that, right?
Yeah, exactly. But you know, once you reach a certain place, like I really feel like the thing that attracts the financing is your reputation. One, you're gonna get the film done, and secondly, the cast. I think cast, it's underestimated how much a great casting choice will attract financiers. So,
exactly, yeah. And so we had ours in place prior to our cast, but the cast was also an incentive as well. And I've worked with my ex-wife, Mary Liz Winstead, Leland Orser, Jesse Eisenberg, Imogen Poots. Like, I've worked with people that I think that are talented enough that I think that they trusted that similar cast would develop on this side, and it did. And Aaron Paul, Karen Gillan, everybody involved. I'm very, very, again, very lucky.
And Patrick Lemire says, willingness to do indies after being huge movies is a good sign of a good person. There you go.
Yeah. In Karen and Aaron, yeah.
Yeah. Solomon Thornton says, what was your inspiration to becoming a filmmaker, and what were your challenges?
I used to want to be a musician growing up. I played bass, and like I mentioned, my ex-wife, she's an actor. So being able to visit sets and see how movies were made, I kind of started realizing that was more where my interest was rather than music. I initially wanted to be a writer because I didn't want the spotlight, but as I started writing and I was on a TV show as a staff writer for a brief period there, I realized that I also wanted to see that vision through to the end. So I started making shorts, and the one that got into Sundance led to the first feature, and I've been working in features ever since.
Fletcher Williams says the music was great in the trailer. Is the same person doing the whole movie, and who are they? The person before.
So the music in the trailer is actually just music for the trailer only. It's not a composer that worked on the film, but the composer that I worked with on this movie is a woman named Emma Ruth Rundle. I'm a huge fan of her music. This is her first score. And I think that even though it's not the same as what's in the trailer, I think that people are going to be very excited about this music. And I think that she's going to continue to be a very in-demand composer if she wants to be.
Great. And Dane Fagelholm says, is it possible for an indie film to make money?
I mean, I know that we're in a different budget sort of space, but you can look at a film like Everything Everywhere All at Once, which definitely a bigger budget than Duel, but it will make so much money at the box office. I think it comes down to ideas. It comes down to promotion, the cast involved. It's a long road sort of thing for indies. I look at something like my previous film, The Art of Self-Defense, where it made its money back at the box office, but you have to look at how much you spend on advertising and press and everything. So it will eventually make its money back if it hasn't already, but you can't look at it as an opening weekend sort of thing. I think on the indie side of things, you have to look at it as a long path and a long road.
Yeah, I agree. It's usually like, I mean, I've heard the average, and this was, went to the Sundance producers conference once, and they say usually from concept to screen is like 7 years. That's average.
Yeah, and Faults, my first feature, was a very, very, very low budget, especially when you look at some other first features. And I think that thing is still probably trying to make its money back. But the people who distributed it, Screen Media, they told me day one, we look at this as a lifetime sort of thing. We hope that people will always come back to it as you continue to make movies. And that faith from a smaller distributor is pretty cool, just like trusting the process.
Right. And then Fletcher Williams also asked, what colors did you focus on in the cinematography? I noticed I watch a lot of explainer videos, and you see that like there's almost like a color palette or like a lookbook that directors will create. Can you talk about that, the cinematography?
My first two films tended to be more on the yellow/brownish side. And so, but that fit the palette of those movies. And on this one, I really wanted it to feel colder, a little bit more, like, for lack of a better word, like lonely. And so our focus ended up being more towards the blue and greens. I mean, you'll see it in our poster even. That's kind of the palette that we were using. But kind of a muted, colder palette is the direction that we went.
Great. And then can you talk about what you're working on next at all? Is this too soon?
It's soon in the sense that I would talk about it if I totally knew what that would be, but I'm still just trying to kind of let Duel finish its process, and I think I can kind of turn my brain towards the next thing soon. But I am attached to a TV thing that has not been announced yet. We're going to be taking it out to networks, I believe, in 2 weeks, and some very exciting actors are attached to that, and hopefully we'll be able to talk more about it soon.
Cool. And another question from our chat, Solomon Thornton asks, how did you get your first films into Sundance? Do you want to talk?
I mean, people don't want to believe this, but the programmers watch literally everything that you send them, and there's no favors done there. So if you make something that is good and something that they like, you have a chance. It's not like a who you know sort of situation, no matter how much people like to talk about, like, oh, I didn't get in because I don't know somebody there. So my first short that got into Sundance, I think they saw it and they saw that they could program it. They played it before a feature called Hell Baby. So it wasn't in a shorts program, but they found a spot for it. And then this is my first film as a feature to play Sundance. The other two were both premiered at South by Southwest. So yeah, just make something that you're proud of and something that you feel like is worth making, and submit it. That's the answer.
I don't know how much longer we have you for, but we still have questions. Okay, cool. So we've got Fletcher Williams. What advice would you give someone wanting to get into filmmaking?
My simple advice is make shorts. Honestly, I think that the best path into making something on a bigger scale is to start on a smaller scale, and you can learn about your process. You can learn how to work with other people, which is a huge part of making films, and you get to practice. And so, don't go into something big. Like, start small. Similarly, if you're just a writer, you're going to have a hard time getting your stuff read if you don't have something to show as well. So if you can partner up with a director that you trust, or somebody with a vision that maybe you don't necessarily have on that side of the camera, make something that you're proud of. You can submit that to people and show them that. And if they like it, then they might read your script a little bit more likely than they would just kind of cold. So practice small.
I have a question about you shot Duel during COVID. A lot of films coming out now, same thing. Was there anything positive that came out of the way it had to be shot that you'll use in the future?
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily fully use it in the future, but one thing that was positive on set was that we had to work in zones. So you have a zone A, a zone B, zone C, so that certain crew are never going to be in contact with the actors, just to avoid potential spread. And what was nice about that, while challenging, was that we had fewer people on set at any given moment. And not to say that I didn't miss having a larger group there, and I like the fact that other people get to be involved, obviously, and watch the monitors and stuff. But it did feel a little bit more efficient having fewer people there at any given moment. I don't know if it'll fully ever go back to exactly like that, but I do think that the fewer people that have to be on set, probably the better. But I also, again, like I said, I kind of miss the fact that some crew never really got to be there in the same way that they would have been on other films. So I feel a sense of sadness for that. But as an overall, I think it was more efficient that way.
Let's see. Patrick Lemire says a stint in working in food service should be compulsory.
Agreed. I worked at Sea Island Shrimp House in Austin, so I know all about it.
I love Austin, Texas. Lee Kindler says, what's your opinion on edgy material? Can a film go too far, or does it depend on execution?
I would say, yeah, it depends on execution. I tend to try to withhold a little bit, maybe not show everything. I think that audio goes a long way, imagination goes a long way. But then you watch somebody like Cronenberg and you're like, do whatever you want to me. Show me everything. I'll take it.
Well, especially with Cronenberg. I don't know if you saw the trailer for his new movie.
Oh, yeah. That's why it's on my mind.
Oh, my God. So bizarre. Fletcher Williams says, how did you do the editing? How was that process as the creator?
My favorite part of the filmmaking process is the edit. Everything along the way has its pluses and minuses. I mean, it can be incredibly fun and incredibly stressful to be on set at the same time. Writing is very challenging, but I find a sense of satisfaction there. But I love editing. I love that at that part, the pressure is off in a different way. You get time to explore and kind of put everything together. And this is my third time working with my editor, Sarah Beth Shapiro. So we have a very good working relationship. And while I could edit on my own if I needed to, and I tend to do that with all the shorts that I make, I love having another voice in the room. And especially the fact that we think about things in different ways. I think it's invaluable to have a person that you trust help you craft and be a part of that process.
Well, I think the editor is definitely, so underappreciated. Fletcher goes on to ask, what software do you use to edit?
For me, I use Premiere because it's as similar to Final Cut as possible. And I don't like the way that Final Cut works now. So I think back to like Final Cut 10. And since they stopped updating that, I switched to Premiere. And then my editor uses Avid. She's a huge proponent of Avid. So I don't know how to use Avid. So that's where she does all her tricks. And then I just say, maybe try this or that. And I get to sit on the couch and like lay down or whatever. And she does all the hard work.
Well, unfortunately, we're going to wrap it up right here. But I want to say, Riley, thank you for being on the Film Threat podcast here, talking to our audience. Congratulations. People were asking that came in late, asking, how do we see the movie? It is in theaters. I'm saying Dual.
Dual. Yeah. Dual's in theaters today. Yeah.
It's in theaters today. It's Karen Gillan, indie sci-fi, high concept. Check out the trailer, or better yet, don't check out the trailer. Just go see the movie. But it's playing at AMC theaters. And I know Joe Lynch. I've known Joe Lynch for years. We work together at G4 TV. So Say hi to Joe tonight. He is the perfect person to do your Q&A tonight. So Riley, thank you for joining us on the show, and can't wait to have you back for your next film.
Thank you guys. That was a blast, and I love being just thrown straight into a live stream. Nothing better.
Yes, no, it's great.
It's great. Honestly, guys, you literally log in and all of a sudden you're live. So it was very fun for me.
That's the way to do it. No pomp and circumstance. Come on, talk to the Film Threat team, talk to everyone in our chat. Thank you so much. They're giving you so much love here. They're saying congratulations. Thanks, Riley. It was great listening to you. Thanks for coming on. Riley, congrats with the film. Have fun at the Q&A. Say hi to Joe for me.
Thank you, guys. Y'all take care. Have a good day.
All right. Take care, Riley. Later. Bye.